Can you hear me? Yes. How exciting. Lovely to see you all. Thanks for coming this afternoon. Hope you had a great lunch, and welcome to our skills discussion this afternoon. As you can see, I'm joined by a fantastic panel. My name is Spencer Pitfield. I run SPL Strategies. We're a Westminster-based public affairs and communications company, and I am your chair today, as hope you got my good side, if there is a good side. So welcome to all of you. Enough said. What we're going to do is it's going to be a very informal discussion. It's an extremely important debate because, as you know, as well as I do, this Labour government is absolutely focused on delivering the skills agenda for our country. And in particular today, what I'd like to focus on is how we think about the skills that we need for construction and indeed for green skills. We might go to other places too, but let's just imagine we're going to focus particularly on how we're going to upskill for construction, all of those many houses that we need to build, and green skills. So I have a number of colleagues here on the table, as you can see, and what we're going to do is we're just going to go down the table because I will forget and get everything wrong. Just do a very brief introduction so that you can get to meet the panel. So Terry, over to you first of all. You might need to take the microphone just to...
Good afternoon, Terry Jermy. I'm the Member of Parliament for South West Norfolk.
Great. Mark.
Good afternoon, Mark Williams. I'm Head of Training at City Training Group based in Cardiff.
Mike.
Mike Blakeley, Executive Director at Exeter College and also Chair of the National Green Skills Advisory Panel.
Thank you, Mike. Graham, do you want to grab
I'm going to see if this works. Yeah,
excellent.
I'm Graham Hastings-Evans, and I'm the Chief Executive of a skills charity called NOCN. My background is in civil engineering and infrastructure.
Fantastic. Thank you. Chris.
Chris Claydon, I'm the Chief Executive of JTL. We're an apprenticeship training provider, also a charity, and we train level 3 apprenticeships, electricians and plumbers, and we're a national provider, delivering about a third of all electricians each year.
Fantastic, thank you. Juliet, would you like to come up here? We can switch round. So Juliet's going to kick us off after a brief introduction.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juliet Campbell, and I am the Member of Parliament for Broxtowe in Nottinghamshire. My background is working in the National Health Service. I worked in service redesign and improvement, and then into public health before running a not-for-profit organisation specifically around dyslexia. So I am going to touch on dyslexia as part of my presentation. In terms of Labour's policies on skills, for me, I think what I want to see is something more than just to say we have got X number of people into these jobs, into these apprenticeships. It's more about how do people think that their lives have changed, how have their lives improved, and how will we know that we can measure that, not just statistically, but qualitatively as well. And also it's around regions and communities. So I'm going to touch on this area, which is important to me. So the question that was posed is, how do we measure success of Labour's skills policy, moving beyond simple statistics to capture qualitative impact on individual livelihoods and productivity? And I think whoever posed this question was right to do so, because that research has shown us that the majority of us, based on our experience, not on how we compare to other people, but really on how we feel and how things have changed for us. We reflect on our own experiences, not on other people's experiences, not on statistics, not on what the government says. How have these policies made a difference to me? So capturing the qualitative impact is as important as capturing the quantitative impact. And most of us who come from a public health background will actually say it's more important. How we feel and how we respond is more important to what statistic tells us. So as a government, we can implement as many of our policies as we like, and we can implement legislation too. But if people can't feel and see the difference in their lives, we're not able to capture anything. People want a difference. They want to see their lives progress. They want to renew trust and hope. I want people to renew trust and hope in the government. Working people want money in their pockets. They want to see a return on their investment, on their families and their communities. We want to feel the rewards of the investments that we've made. These are quantifiable and quantifiable. We want people to see a difference with their families. We'll see this through better mental health. If we've got better mental health and physical health, there'll be a reduction in the number of people who want to use our health service. Everything is intertwined. Skills is not on its own in a silo. Improving skills for communities makes a difference across all of our priorities. If we see high employment and high satisfaction in jobs, and less people will rely on welfare rights and welfare benefits, there'll be more people going to work, there'll be less people off work sick. Children and young people will gain that love of learning again. If people love learning, they will go to school, they'll attain, and they'll be able to build on their lives. That's what we want to see. That's what skills will do for us. Building a country that recognises the skills and talents of everybody is also important. We have a north and south divide. When we see companies wanting to invest in particular regions, we want them to invest outside of London and outside of the southeast. That is how we get satisfaction. That is how we get the skills that we need. Right, I'm going to move on to my next slide. For those of you who know me, and for those of you who have heard me speak before, you would have heard me speak about the inequalities for people in the dyslexic community. And this really comes on to some of the work that you will all be speaking about in a little while. I think for me, it's an area that I want people's life chances and outcomes to change. Because dyslexic people need to be part of this skills revolution. It is a revolution. It is a time of change. And this is the only government that can make that change happen. This time that we're in, this skills revolution, the Labour government is the government that is going to make that difference. We're not going to see any other time. So I really want all of these organisations here to really hook onto that. Dyslexia is a mild learning disability, yet it can have a significant impact on individuals' lives. Dyslexic people tend to have different disadvantages, but there's also a lack of recognition of the advantages and the benefits of a dyslexic mind. So statistically, dyslexic people have lower educational outcomes, they have low self-esteem and poor mental health. They are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system and sometimes have poor career progression. However, there's a lot more to the dyslexic mind. They are excellent problem solvers. They are creative thinkers. They have excellent analytical skills. They are great entrepreneurs, and they have high emotional intelligence and tend to have higher than average IQs. Now, there are a few large organisations that have caught onto this and are actively seeking to employ dyslexic people. I'm the chair of the APPG for dyslexia, and I'm advocating for a dyslexia strategy. And that strategy will support educators and SMEs on how to facilitate the inclusive environment for neurodiverse people and dyslexic people. Because it's time for us to look beyond the surface. We've got to look a little deeper. And I want to see this skills revolution embolden SMEs so they invest in diversity in their workplace. I want to see a revision in practices in HR, in the policies and the procedures that we have. I want all organisations to be dyslexia friendly and do it on purpose. Every family deserves hope across all the generations. They deserve to have a life that's progressive, and they deserve to have a government and employers and educators who want their best interests met. So today, I leave you with this. Communities and regions must see a difference. They must feel a difference. And everybody in this room has a part to play in that, because everybody has the right to flourish.
Juliet, thank you. Well said. The workforce that we need to train, and we think about our FE colleges and we think about our private sector training providers. But what are the key key things that you feel are hurdles or the struggles that you face as we try to train more young people and indeed older people?
For me, it's really clear. There are more than enough young people out there who want a job, who want a good job. What we don't have is enough employers who can take them on. Over 80% of people who employ apprentices are small, often micro-sized businesses. And the barriers to them employing are just mounting. The skills system is very complex to engage with. The cost of employment has gone up, and employing an apprentice is expensive, given that the return of investment is now a much longer period than it used to be, because again the cost of employment's gone up. They're also very hard to reach people, because they are small and micro employers, which means that they're working, doing the job, doing the estimating, training the apprentice, and doing everything around it. So for me, the best thing we can do collectively is work at removing the barriers to employment, getting more employers on board, and the skills system will be able to deliver. Yes, there are problems within it, of course there are, but the primary issue is there aren't enough employers to take on those learners.
Chris, thank you very much. Graham, to you, I'm going to work down the line actually. So NOCN is one of our major accreditation bodies, particularly around FE and apprenticeships and all of the different skills levels and qualifications. What do you believe is the biggest barrier to delivering that workforce that we know that we need, particularly across the construction space and indeed green skills?
I think there are two major ones that come to mind. The first is confidence in the economy, which links to your point about employers. At the moment, vacancies in construction are declining, and they're declining because people are nervous about building houses, nervous about building infrastructure, all the assets that are necessary for green skills. People are holding back. So I think one of the big impediments at the moment is giving the country confidence the economy will grow, and it's one of the things that is currently lacking. Yes. So that's one part of it. I think we need to know the government knows how to grow the economy, and a lot of people are not certain about that at the moment, and that's crucial. Drives everything. The second is that point, and there are three major areas where you need to tackle skills. One is for people coming into the workforce, so that's our schools, our FE colleges, private training providers that are involved in apprenticeships, universities, all of that foundation to get new entrants in. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of good things in there. Yes, there's improvements, but I think that it's possible to do those improvements. The other big gap is those that are unemployed, and I worked on the London Olympics running the programme to get unemployed people in the 5 boroughs into work and into construction. But I think the government's starting on that one, and the move of skills to DWP, they're trying to tackle needs, they're trying to tackle those that are economically not active. The government is trying to do that. So the thumping great gap is the existing workforce. That if we are going to actually tackle the infrastructure gaps, tackle the housing gaps, and make our country greener, we have got to train the existing workforce, not just in being a bricklayer or a lay electrician or whatever, but to train in a way that they can make the best of the new technologies. So there's a massive amount of training to do of all the existing people from top to bottom, yeah? Leadership all the way down. And at the moment, that appears to be the policy gap that there is in government thinking. There's bits of it, but it's not coherent.
Graham, thank you. Mike, perhaps you could build on this. I mean, Exeter College is a leading FE college in our country, very successful. I believe you've just been successful with one of the bids for a technical college. Could you just build on what Graham has said?
Yeah, I think there's one particular ball I wanted to get on the park today, and you've teamed me up brilliantly well. So
I've done my job.
Yeah, thank you, Spencer. This also comes from the heart. So the day job is all around the skills agenda, and then when I get home at 5 or 6 or 7 o'clock at night, I've got as of was last year, 3 16-year-olds leaving school.
Mm.
So your point earlier about what school is. So 2015, if I just go back in time slightly, Friday afternoons, Thursday afternoons, we would have 300 to 400 young people from schools on site, learning all of those trades, learning those vocational skills that they needed.
Mm.
And then the tap was turned off, so the measures within schools suddenly disappeared. And actually they're purely judged now in terms of their maths, their English, their academic outputs.
Mm.
And that to me is an absolute crying shame, because if we were quick enough to turn that tap off, why can we not turn it back on?
Mm.
So my 3 children left last year, did some amazing algebra that I was absolutely useless at. They know the inspector calls inside out, and they're longshore drift ninjas. But none of that is going to help the challenge that you described today. So if we can find a way to turn that tap back on and give 14 to 16-year-olds the ability to actually engage in the vocational agenda, by the time we then pick them up in a college and all the challenges we've spoke about in terms of, and let's be, pounds, shillings and pence, the return on the investment for the employer is far, far better. So last year my son started on site. He was a school leaver in June and he was an apprentice electrician in August, and he started cold.
Mm.
And it became a burden to that employer. And thank goodness we found a really, really positive employer that could work with him and pull together that skill set that he needs. So the one thing I talk about passionately on this agenda is really finding ways for schools to release that 30% of children that are in that classroom probably struggling because actually they're finding it really, really tough.
Because academia is not for them.
Absolutely, and find them an outlet where actually they can start adding value at a much earlier point.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you. We'll come back to that. Mark, thinking about Wales and our devolved friends, give us a little bit of an insight, a starting insight into the landscape in and around Cardiff and a bit further afield too into Wales.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. Okay. As a private training provider, we're always dealing with post-school, so it's always adults.
Mm.
But what we've noticed is we need a joined-up approach to skills and training across the whole of the UK. So right now, take for example funding access and timescales. They vary depending on where you live. And until that changes, we'll never achieve a consistent national standard. Now, take Wales for example. Learners can access the PLA, Personal Learning Account funding. Now what that does is unlimited, as long as you've got a Welsh address and you're at working age. Some of the courses got a cap on your salary, but most of them haven't. But you can access multiple courses for your personal development. Whereas in England, there's a one-off fee, and Scotland is the same, grant, and Scotland is the same, and so on. So in Wales also, we can only access that funding through FE colleges, whereas in England and Scotland you don't. You can get it directly. So these disparities are holding us all back, I believe. Now another challenge is the loss of cross-trade interaction. Now, when I was an apprentice, if we finished early, we'd go and help the bricklayers, electricians, carpenters, whoever it was. But by doing that, we learned how the trades connected and how the industry worked as a whole. Now that experience is largely gone, but I believe training should build in time to give learners that understanding and wider understanding. And yes, it'll come at a cost, but the long-term benefits, I believe, far outweigh it.
Mark, fantastic. Thank you. We'll just stop there, and we'll bring. There's a lot to go through. Let's bring Terry in. Terry, thank you for joining us from the east of England. Your insights from that part of the world would be appreciated too.
Sure. So I'm from southwest Norfolk, and some of you may be sitting there wondering whereabouts that is or where I've heard that before. So my predecessor was a lady called Liz Truss, who you probably have heard of. Southwest Norfolk is a very rural constituency, so I look at this from a very sort of rural angle. I want to make two very specific points. Firstly, we cannot underestimate the opportunities for economic growth in rural areas. Up to £19 billion could be added to the economy if we actually grasp the growth opportunities in rural areas. If you look at where we need to be building the houses in this country, where we need to be building the green energy solutions, very often the solution is through rural communities. So huge opportunities, but we have significant challenges when it comes to skills and job opportunities. Prior to being a Member of Parliament, I ran my own business in publishing, and we worked with about 80 different advertisers every single month, most of them small businesses, and I would try desperately to get them involved in apprenticeships, involved in going to the careers fair at the local school or hosting work experience opportunities, and I ended up being a business that mopped up all, they'd ring me up and say, can you take somebody else because it's fallen through. Very frustrating. Nearly always the challenge in rural communities accessing either apprenticeships or other skills-based opportunities is transport. We cannot see the issue of education and skills in isolation, whether that's transport getting to the courses or transport getting to the employer. We've got to be looking at an integrated transport solution for rural areas to connect plenty of young people out there in rural communities that want to learn new skills, and we need them to learn. I've got the largest sugar beet factory in Europe in my constituency, British Sugar, as well as obviously producing sugar. They produce bioethanol. Absolutely, really fascinating, frankly, what you can do with sugar beet.
That's for another day.
It's for another day. I can talk forever about sugar beet. But what they're doing around AI and using technology to help with that, crucial, but they need the right people with the right skills to take that business forward. So huge opportunities in rural areas. We have to have a UK-wide strategy when it comes to skills that looks at rural areas as well, but also accepting that often the barrier to access is very often transport.
Thank you. Thank you for this Parliament. And it's also, I think, clear to all of us that a lot of money is going into this skills revolution. Mike, if I could come to you, what does this skills revolution mean? Not so long ago it was education, which at the time meant everyone went to university, and that seemed frankly the wrong thing to do, because as you've alluded to, a good group of young people, or indeed older learners, that's not where they wanted to be. So what for you does Labour's skills revolution look like? And by way of context, of course, you're at an FE college, you're dealing closely with the Labour government, and you're seeing firsthand what they're doing and how they're doing it.
A lot of this is now evolving, so there are probably 8 key agendas that hit the educational sphere that we are waiting really to go with. So things like the construction technical excellence colleges, that's really the first ball on the pitch in terms of the new agenda that we're in, and that's putting a real focus then in terms of closing the skills gap, making sure that young people are aware. And we are in an era actually where young people are really aware of the opportunities, and that's really positive. So there is something that's working around careers advice and guidance. There is something about that's priming young people to make those correct decisions. But what we've got is a whole number of pieces of the jigsaw that need to fall into place to make this cohesive and all come together.
Yeah.
So we've got to just really be primed and ready to go. But I know that FE is definitely run by heart. There's a lot of energy goes into supporting young people, and as a sector we are massively primed to make sure that actually do the best by those young people. There's brilliant success everywhere you look. We do possibly though need a little bit more help. So without the employer engagement process taking place and some incentivisation to make sure that young people can make that connection to the world of work, we're forever going to struggle.
And what does that help mean, just very quickly? I mean, how could the government, we have 2 elected colleagues here, how can they help to make that? Because you alluded earlier to the fact, I think your son's very lucky, obviously he's got someone at home who's passionate about this and can help, but many of those young people won't have that type of, Juliet was alluding to it earlier, they don't necessarily have that unit behind them that can help them.
So historically what you used to see was employer grants. So a young person would join an employer and they would make sure that the bridging gap of taking a young person on and making them valuable in your business, they made a financial contribution up to around £3,000. Am I a great advocate for those financial incentives? Possibly not, but they do work. If 1 in 25 employers in my area, so we've got an employer network of 1,000, there's probably 25,000 businesses that we should go at. But in really busy times and challenging times, the focus of the employers aren't on the skills agenda. The focus of employers is on survival and making sure today we are there for tomorrow. But if you rock up and you have a very valuable conversation which starts with, and we can cover a few months worth of those wages, it does actually make those ears prick up. But anything we can do that may not be solely financial led to support those businesses, we need to find a way to do that.
Thank you. And Chris, you were saying that the main impediment is the fact that it's one thing training the young people and the older people, but where are the jobs that they can go to? As Mike was saying, how do we what further can we do to make those connections? How do we help business to offer those posts? Because it seems ridiculous to me that we train people up and then there's not a job for them to go to. It's almost like going back to the skills register day. We need to know, what jobs we need to be preparing for as we move into a world that's ever changing.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about an apprenticeship is you train someone with a job already, they've got a job. But that apprenticeship, and our apprenticeships, level 3, but they're 4-year apprenticeships, that will cost the employer £100,000 on top of the skills levy, which is helping pay for the training part. So that's £100,000 for a small or micro business. It's a lot of money to invest. And in the challenges we have are societal as well. So younger people, and especially in the area I work, they'll move for £1 an hour more. At the end of their training, they want to set up their own business. They're entrepreneurial, which is great. We're bringing this entrepreneurial class. But the employer's going, well, hang on, I put all this investment and time in, and now they've gone. So I think we need to share that burden more equitably, and I think we should be looking at things like tax breaks particularly for small and micro employers, where they're able to, and we can help them de-risk that delivery, because they're good at what they do, but they just need help to incentivise it to go right. So, and it's not just about the money and the tax. We've got to simplify the skill system. We hear about an awful lot of initiatives, and initiatives are announced on top of initiatives on top of initiatives, which is great because it's an attempt to respond. But what we've got is a very complex system to engage with. And again, if you're a small business person, you run your own business, you're doing your estimating, you're doing the work, you're trying to train your apprentice, engaging electronically with the government and navigating those apprenticeships are difficult. I'll finish on this one point. The DfE have just updated their funding rules for apprenticeships. The update, 38 pages. That's the update. Now imagine how complex that is to engage with a set of the funding rules, which are so big like that. And they place a burden on everyone. And it is putting people off.
Thank you so much. So, Graham, you alluded to this earlier. Skills have left or are in the process of leaving the Department of Education and going to DWP. Do you have further thoughts on that? I mean, from my sort of education background, that seems a bit confusing to me, but I'd be interested to know your thoughts. And then further, I think we need great flexibility in our accreditation bodies because the world of learning is changing so fast. So could you just comment on what an organisation like NOCN is doing to deliver that flexibility for the providers, some of whom are here on the table?
Yeah, I'll deal with the first question about the move to DWP. I don't think that in itself is necessarily negative.
Okay.
I think that it didn't fit brilliantly in DfE. Because most of the work in skills is around adults and is around the existing workforce, and that didn't necessarily fit all that well in DfE. I think the challenge for the government as this moves forward, and has been said at an earlier event I've been to, is how do you ensure that it's in step with industrial strategy and employers, and the link across to employers, SMEs and larger employers. So I think the change could be okay, but a lot more work is needed to it. And I'll turn back actually to the point I made about the gap. We've got to train the existing workforce. They are not going to go back to university or a T-level or HTQ or whatever it is, They are going to want small courses because many of the new jobs that are created in green, for example, they've probably got 80% of the skills of those already, They need to be upskilled. And what we are doing as an accreditation organisation is focusing on upskilling people and providing good, quality assured top-up courses, not just here in the UK, because we work in 30 different countries, but that's what most people are looking for. They want their workforce to be upskilled, and we are working directly with employers outside the DFE process, outside DWP, you get all of that. Direct to employer, right, you are a group of employers, maybe you're a trade association, what do you need? Let us do that together, develop something, make sure it's quality assured and accredit it. And that's the way forward for much of the skills agenda. And in policy terms, that's not there yet. But it's starting to be, and in some countries abroad, it's well advanced compared to where we are. We've got to come back and sort out the existing workforce and how we upskill them. It's a big gap, and we are falling behind as a country in that area.
It's very important. Juliet, if I could just come to you again, I was really quite touched by the fact that skills training should be accessible and open to all. Having heard what we've been talking about, do you have some further thoughts for everyone about how we could be more inclusive in the way that we develop those skills approaches? You might need to lean forward just to the mic. Yes, sorry.
There's a few things that I've captured here. So one of them particularly around your FE college, and obviously your college is very aware of what you're doing and very aware of what the needs are. I think one of the things that we might need to be looking at greater is other colleges that perhaps aren't at the same place as you are. FE colleges do need to consider how they design courses in the future and what the needs are. So what are the demands? And we know that there are the green jobs that are out there. We know that we don't have the workforce or the skills currently to meet those needs. And it's broader than just the green jobs as well. It's technology, it's the digital world, it's around AI. What I think that this government is good at is recognising that there are those gaps and recognising the importance of working with organisations like yours. So we are on a journey, but I think we're going in the right direction. I also wanted to just come on to something that you've just said, and it's one of the things that I've been speaking to people around is about upskilling people. So a lot of the time we do talk about young people, getting young people into work, but there's a group of people, perhaps 35 to 45, who have got a great deal of work experience and are not quite satisfied in the job that they're in, but they can't leave their job and go back to college or go to university and retrain. And so some of these smaller top-up courses is what we ought to be working with FE colleges, technology colleges, organisations within our communities, because the more we upskill people, the more people are satisfied in their job. And the more satisfied people in their job they are, the less time people take off work, the less time that they are accessing services. This is really what my introduction was around, is that this is it's not just the skills, it's how it trickles down and it has that domino effect on all the other areas that the government is focusing on. So I think you're absolutely right. It is a journey. I'm glad that you think as an organisation that we are moving in the right direction. That's very positive for me to hear. And so you just keep on having to have those conversations and keep that dialogue open.
I think that's the only way for us to deal with AI. The world of work is going to radically change. I've heard people say in the next generation. I think it's in the next 2 years. It's what's happening now in our own business. It's happening now, and therefore the world of work is going to change radically. And if we don't support the whole of our workforce to make that transition, then we are going to have enormous problems. High unemployment, businesses that aren't up to date, they can't produce the products and services that can compete abroad. So we really do need to tackle it, and it's got to be done by shorter courses. It's the only way of tackling it.
So do you think that's a potential risk then we've got to guard against with the move to DWP? Because they're about getting people into work.
Correct.
It's a very laudable aim, but not necessarily about progressing people through a career, which is more of a DFE slant, isn't it? That progressive.
And I think
how do we blend the two?
That's the big gap. And therefore that's the gap that we need to get out of the industrial. I think DBT needs to be involved in that, because that's where the industrial strategy and the sectors lie. And I would like to see a stronger presence of sectors. In our sector there is, but in many other sectors there is not. And those sectors need to be able to drive with government what are the changes that we need in terms of the new technologies. How are we going to do this? How are we going to upskill the existing workforce? I hear horror stories of civil servants writing AI courses for construction, and they've never worked in the construction industry. So we don't want that. What we need is the employers, the sectors together with people like ourselves, who've got a different form of expertise, but all part of it to help us move forward. And we do have, and that is the bit of policy that I think is badly missing. We're focusing on, we've got NEETs, it's a problem, you know, let's reduce that, and I accept that's really important, but there's a bigger problem looming, and we need to spend some time tackling the bigger problem as well.
Terry, if I could come to you, because there's a lot of inactive young people and older people in our country, and they would absolutely benefit from the type of skills offers that we're talking about here. How do we make sure that there is that consistency of opportunity? Because what I detect is that, you know, we have some great expertise on the table here, but that's not necessarily replicated across the country. And I'm particularly concerned about those people who are just inactive and slipping through the cracks, really, and not getting the support. You know, what can government do in that regard as an elected colleague? And how do we simplify things? Because another message that's come through is it's still quite complicated, of course. It's complicated. But how do we make it easier for employers, for accreditation bodies, for providers? How do we simplify it?
I think that consistency point is quite key. We need to maintain standards and be consistent across the board. But I also think flexibility is quite key. Businesses will always move as quickly as they can to take advantage of opportunities. Those businesses in my constituency that are thriving are those that are not waiting for the providers or others. They're actually doing it themselves because they need to move quickly for their industry.
Yes.
I think the challenge for government is to come up with a system that is consistent but allows flexibility. So in Norfolk, huge opportunities in renewables, offshore wind particularly, and solar in the county. Actually having localised opportunities to allow that flexibility. It's not going to be the same across the board, but we need to be flexible to respond to those changes.
Fantastic. Mark, would you like to come in?
Yeah, flexibility is pretty much everything. A lot of our courses where we've had people upskilling, we've adapted. So whereas one course, for argument's sake, the nuclear industry gas course would be 6 weeks, 1 full week or 6 weeks or more. We've actually got people who used to play rugby come in 1 day a week on their day off, their non-training day, and we spread it over a much longer time. So it is about flexibility, but unlike people like that, we need to be able to.
I'm sorry about this. There's a problem. It's doing great things to my tinnitus. I'm really sorry about this. Keep going, Mark. You were doing great.
Don't stop.
Yeah, it's about offering this flexibility to the employers as well, not just the students.
Yeah.
And these short courses, we do offer an awful lot of those, and because we've adapted them, and on another point, we do use AI every day. It's a big part of what we do now. We are moving forward with these courses, and it's working, but there is support needed from the government for that.
Fantastic, thank you. Mike, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think, like, you know, we're very aware that we can sit here and talk about what the challenges, but we need some solutions, and sometimes carrot isn't enough, and sometimes there's a bit of stick required. So all large building projects now have something called a skills plan attached, which clearly breaks down by value the amount of skills those projects need to deliver. They are the best thing going. They absolutely outline every single aspect of that job and what people need to do. However, the challenge with them all is they're unenforceable. So they go through planning, they sign off a lovely plan which says we'll do X of this, Y of that, Z of that, and then clearly they just disappear into the wind. So recently we've come across a project, total value of 250 million, and it has 0 skills plans attached. So they can just carry on merrily build and make 0 contribution to the skills agenda. So when we talk about the bit around mobility, the bit around needs, sparking those young people to say, look, if we present those opportunities to them on a plate, say, if you can start this program with us and we can start building up your skill set, we can absolutely guarantee you a job, because every single large infrastructure project should have a solid quota that somebody is monitoring.
So how did they get away with not having a skills plan and it's such a big project?
It's a really good question. I've asked it
Because we have elected colleagues
Yeah,
here. I mean, how it's like a Section 106 which doesn't get enforced.
That's exactly where they go through. So probably 15, 20 years ago, I worked alongside a large house builder, and we used to go to the planning committees, and we'd go, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. They're signed off at that point in time, and then the what's next. Nobody will ever go back and review those. But what an amazing opportunity. If we've got such a significant skills gap in construction, if we've got this large body of young people that are looking for things to do, and I can assure you the interest of young people in the agenda of construction is as higher than it's ever been, mainly led by earning opportunities. There is
These are
this
good
gap
jobs.
of enforcement which says actually, look, these are the jobs that can be displayed, and they should be ring-fenced for 16 to 24-year-olds, so that actually we can start making great positive inroads into that division.
Great.
But
Thank
there are
you.
ways you can measure that. When I was on the London Olympics, we could measure. We introduced a measurement system around work and the CSCS card, if you know what that is. And I can remember having a young MP called David Lammy standing over me on my desk saying, and how many people from my constituency are getting to work last week? So we can do those things if we're minded from the beginning. They are measurable. Yeah?
Great. This is your moment, ladies and gentlemen. This is question time. Great, interactive. Gentlemen at the back, let's go at the back, and the microphone can work forward. Very quick questions if you can, so we can get as many answers as possible. I can't hear you, sir. So. Is it on? No, well, you could. It could be the air conditioning behind me. I don't know. You couldn't hear it.
Are we using vocational technology throughout the system? Moving to AI to one side, micro-credentials and stackable qualifications, distance learning when you're waiting for your comprehensive rural transportation policy, and so much more. I feel there's much more we do in the system to enable greater accessibility and participation.
Great. I didn't hear much. Did you hear that, Terry?
Yeah.
Do you want to respond very quickly?
No, I completely agree. I think it comes back to that point about flexibility.
Yeah, it does.
We're never going to be able to have access across the whole of the country in the most remote areas. So online learning, bite-sized opportunities. We need to be looking at the whole thing.
Great. We have the gentleman here. You're going to have to scream. I'll come to you. Just the gentleman here. If you could just scream out.
Okay, I will do. So I represent I'm representing the 44 university technical colleges. They're not the same as the FE technical colleges. They're 14 to 19. They've got a very strong employer link. They're getting young people into apprenticeships and T-levels, and because you want me to keep it short, the government in the industrial strategy identifies that young people are taught technical and employability skills at secondary school. It's more expensive to deliver technical education than classroom teaching.
Yeah, it is.
And also we need to have more technical schools across the country. We hope we might see that in the budget. Will you guys back these sorts of campaigns?
Well, I personally think that we need to start that journey at 14 for more of our youngsters, yes, in a more coherent way. And if you look at Germany and other countries, other European countries, they create that split. I think we're trying to drive young people through an academic set of hoops to 16, and that's a bit too long.
Great, thank you. I have the lady there. Let's see whether the mic works. Very exciting.
Yes, I'm not sure it does, so I'll have to shout.
No, it does.
I'm sorry if this is a really simplistic question or not relevant to this discussion.
It's all relevant.
But I learnt, to the extent I learnt to use equipment, computer equipment, I learnt it entirely on the job in employment, and it was much easier, perhaps it was easy in a sense to learn that because I could immediately see the application that this was going to have. I needed to do it. I had bosses on top of me saying you need to get this work out, and it made it easy. Now, how did we get to the point where companies expect the government to pay to teach their employees the skills that they ought to be learning on the job?
Well, as part of an apprenticeship, that's exactly what they're doing, learning on the job.
Yeah.
But we're working a very safety critical. You're not going to die because you touch the wrong part of your computer unless you've taken the back off it. Whereas you're working in a safety critical area, you will die and you might kill other people as well if you get it wrong. So you have to train them in a very different way and thoroughly and properly. And And that's why for certain areas you need that off-the-job training in a safe environment where people can learn how to do things properly before they get involved. And that's the simple reason behind it.
I'd add one other thought too. Of course, the moment government's involved, then it becomes a little bit more complicated. Over to you.
Nick Miles, EWI Pro Insulation Systems. We're a national external wall insulation supplier. Also, I sit on the National Green Skills Advisory Panel with Graham and Mike. So it's just a question on kind of the departmental structure, a little bit what Graham and Chris were talking about. We had a discussion earlier with Minister Martin McCluskey, so he's the new DESNZ Minister. So for us in the industry, we're sort of a little bit kind of perplexed where the skills responsibility will sit with DESNZ and the Department for Housing. How does that, either the elected colleagues or the panel, how will that fit in with DBT and all the other departments? How do we get joined up with government basically to deliver?
I think this is the million-dollar question, particularly given the size of government. I don't know whether one of our elected colleagues, Terry, do you want to have a go at that one? How do we get that joy? Or Juliet? It's really a governmental question.
I think the key is to not look at it in isolation in one department. I think actually skills cuts across all departments. And so actually, obviously DESNZ is crucial, but also MHC, LG and all the other government departments. This should be a culture issue across them.
Great. Mike, you wanted to come back, and then Chris too.
Quick response to that. Good colleges don't really care. We're just there to deliver the skills agenda. We're smart enough to make up our own ideas in terms of what's needed, and whether it's got a DWP badge or DFE badge on it. So
Yeah, Chris.
And I think if you really want to make it work, really empower Skills England. Make sure it's delivered at the right level, that it can properly work across government and has that degree of independence that it can work across government. And then you'll get a better result.
Fantastic. Thank you. Have the gentleman there in the blue jacket.
Good afternoon. My name's Pete Bales. I'm a councillor actually in Juliet's constituency.
Welcome.
But in my day job, I work in construction, and I've taken probably 35 to 40 apprentices through the JTL scheme.
Excellent.
Two questions really. One is, how do we make construction an attractive proposition for school leavers? When we're interviewing apprentices, you get very, very nervous 16, 17-year-olds that don't know what they're saying. They come in, they sit really quietly in interviews, but that's ones that want to come in for interviews, which is fantastic to have. But schools aren't right for everything. As you said, Juliet, they're not the right environment, but construction can be. But the second question, going to what you said about the skills, and I've been involved in some construction jobs up to £750 million, but things are becoming a tick box exercise. Corporate and social responsibility, the large construction companies and management companies now, they are employing companies to do the work for them, and to get all that pressure passed on to them, and they're not getting the help and the support. So it's what can we do as a government, as the different, because everything you've said, you've hit the nail on the head, but what is being done about it?
Two very good questions, and you're not a plant in the audience. No, great, because there was a JTL plug and a constituency plug. Mike, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, which one do you want?
I'll go for the first.
I'll come to the second question. So the skills plan challenge, which, as I say, I think is a really, really significant one. You talk about there about divorcing that into the world of CSR. You're absolutely right. Put it through the statute within the planning application that the skills plan becomes the responsibility of the local independent training providers and the colleges. We have a vested interest in delivering those skills plans. We do it at no cost to that individual, and actually we'll make sure that they happen, because obviously we will have to be judged by all of the bodies that oversee us. And I had a long conversation with Jackie Smith recently about it, saying, we are experts in the skills agenda when it comes to employer needs. Actually put us at the heart of that, and we'll absolutely make it work. Your point about interviewing, I love. If you did it by WhatsApp, you'd be absolutely fine, right? But, they'd all be hired. But you're absolutely right. We have started now, and I'm really, really proud of this. 35, 40 schools at primary school level, taking them on that construction journey by construction professionals, not us. So they are in schools living there, which all culminates in a lovely project at the end of the year, and they present. Nick will have seen it, Graham will have seen it. 11 and 12-year-olds presenting their large infrastructure projects to us. Are the best presentations you'll ever see in my academic year. So we recognise that challenge, and we have work to do.
Just to say there are many excellent colleges, but Exeter is right up there. It might not necessarily be. Chris, did you want to come in quickly?
Well, I was just going to say that exactly that. The problem is people have changed a bit, haven't they, in the way they come through and that level of confidence. And we see it with we get learners in to try and encourage them to come in from different backgrounds, and we assess them, and then we like to offer those learners up to employers as potential apprentices, and we give them support in CV writing and talk to them how to talk. But so often they come in with a parent who voices it for them, and it's very difficult sometimes to separate them from the parent, take them to different areas, and really get that learner to look you in the eye. But the journey they go on, the transformation journey, you were talking earlier about it, is incredible. That 16, 17-year-old to the 21-year-old who qualifies as an electrician is very, very human being. So many parents say that, and they're quite amazed by what it changed. So I think if you get them into the right environment where they are properly nurtured, you can take that shy young person and actually turn them into a very articulate, confident, skilled person.
I'd like to touch on levies.
Graham,
your first question?
Okay, very quick. I've got 3 minutes and I've got things to do. So
go on then.
I want to take the lady there in the pink. Thank you for waiting.
No, thank you. So I was very excellent discussion, by the way.
Thank you.
I was really taken at the start by Juliet's mentions about dyslexia in particular. My day job, I'm at the RSBC, Royal Society for Blind Children. We have a lot of conversations with our young people about how we can help them get into employment and how we can, but the access to work process is still undergoing lots of reform. So it's working out how can we lead the way in some ways with getting young people from particular disabilities into work, and how can we actually model different ways of practice, and maybe it is around, and transport's huge for our young people as well. What can we do to show different solutions really?
And thank you for the incredible work that you do. We've got to wind up because, so we're going to try and answer this as we go down the line because I've got 1.5 minutes left. Terry, if I could begin with you, we're going to go straight down the line, just a final thought, and if anyone can touch on that great thought and question about...
Yeah, I think the word of the day for me is around flexibility, whether that's in terms of access or design and the types of courses available. Flexibility is key.
Fantastic. Mark?
For me, skills and training aren't just about qualifications, they're about fairness and opportunity. Labour must be the party who invests in people wherever they live and whatever trade they choose. A joined-up approach to training is not only good for learners and employers, it's good for the whole economy.
Mark, thank you. Mike?
10 years ago I went down the Seek Forgiveness Not Approval agenda, and I removed GCSE entry points.
This is a personal moment.
And 4 years later, obviously, it was uncovered what I'd done, but the good news was the stats stack up. So I genuinely believe Maths and English is the entry point generally for most academic qualifications. It is so tough for young people to get in without that Maths and English provision laid on. It's actually my job to make sure that I nurture them and I get them over that point. And as I say, when you look at the two control groups, those that turn up with English and Maths and those that don't, and we've invested a lot into those young people to pass, the success rates are exactly the same. You know, we're well ahead of national average, so long may it continue.
Right, thank you. Graham?
I'd like to see sectors have a bigger role. I'd like to see a better partnership between government and sectors to tackle not only the getting people into work and the young people, but to tackle the upskilling issue. I'd like to see that. And to do that, I think we need to reform the levies. And in construction, we have 3. So let's reform the levies to achieve the objective.
The levies had to get in near the end. Chris, to you? Very important.
Productivity is about 2 things, capital and skills.
Yes, it is.
And the government has got this mission to use productivity to achieve everything it needs, with social mobility and everything else.
Yeah.
So let's support those employers, give the skills to those young people to drive up our productivity.
Fantastic. Time is short. Juliet, the last word to you.
Do diversity on purpose. Absolutely making sure that organisations, colleges, make sure that they are looking at different groups of people, understanding that one size does not fit all, and also what I think from here is around partnership and respecting those who are in professions that understand skills, that understand apprenticeships and working
Great,
partnerships.
thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to this incredible panel. I hope you've enjoyed this skills discussion, and thank you to you.